Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Pugh. I am just as impacted, like they said, but I am here today because, for one, I have to definitely thank Rob Scott on so many levels. You really have no understanding how much this means to me. But at the same time, I want to make sure that you guys understand that when you are studying peace studies, it looks totally different from the perspective of where I stand when I understood the different theories and terminologies of learning peace studies. And one of the things that really stood out to me the most was structural violence, but we'll get in that to a little bit later after we introduce everyone.
Not sure we're going to get into that later. We may get into that now. No, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name is Angela Williamson. I am probably, I think, the most recently released. I've been out about 5 months. I did about 12 years, just so you'll have some kind of frame of reference. And to look at what education in prison meant was life-changing. And we think, they're getting the algebra, and they're getting the writing abilities, and they're getting this, that, and the other. And while the education means everything, there was also a latent side of that was not known, and it came in the form of connection. Because when you're in prison, you're very isolated. It's like Groundhog Day, over and over and over. The outfits are the same, the meals are the same, the people are the same, the officers are the same, everything's the same all the time. And you're referred to by a last name only. You never are referred to by your first name again. So that is a no-go. And then when you go a little bit further, there's never a connection. You can't actually physically touch somebody beside you. You have to be careful what kind of conversations you have and what goes on, because there's that constant pressure of just being watched and scrutinized and really looked down upon. And so when Life University came in, they offered something very different. They offered a connection point that was different than anything I had seen. It was something that was above and beyond just teaching us algebra or peace studies, or we took something called spiritual autobiography, which was fantastic. It was a kind of a reframing of your story. So there was all these things that we were collectively receiving, but beyond that, we met a group of teachers that actually cared who we were, used our first names, cared about our writings and our styles and our thoughts and our creativity. And it gave back an element of us that was lost in the process of courts and sentencing and incarceration. So I just want to kind of let y'all know that this was a program that was a life changer for many of us, and not just for us, but beyond that. The cultures that we lived in, the dorms we lived in, the groups that we socialized with, it changed it all. And it also changed a lot of our relationships with our family members. Because they saw us doing something that we could be proud of, doing something that was going to add back to value and community when we came out. And so it was really a life-changing event. So I want to do the same thing. I want to thank Life University and Mr. Scott for having that insight to know what to do with that. There you go. Yeah.
After that. Hi, I'm Shannon Smith. I did 25 years in prison. I'm a formerly incarcerated person. Life University changed my life. It offered me so much information that wasn't allotted to me. Can y'all hear me? Allotted to me prior to college, to school. So, and I want to talk about structural violence. You hear about things until you're studying it, and then you realize the people or the subjects are me. This is about me being a black female in a society that highly sexualized who I am as a person. I never gave consent for that. I never said that, but that's what's thought of me, and that's how people would treat me. And if I spoke up for myself, then it would be received as me being violent. And I really just want to get my point across, The information was life-changing as far as going back to the dorm with people who were angry all the time, who was a subject to this structural violence, and their reaction was they were angry with me because I think I'm in school, I think I'm better than them. It helped me to understand people. As I moved through my sentence, I was one of the first cohorts to come out. I'll get my bachelor's in the winter. And a lot of structural violence I encountered was when I came home. All these things I've been studying about were things that I would be confronted with in life. You know, I'm a convicted felon now, not a returning citizen. The language is different out there in society, and they are treating me different. I woke up one day, I was homeless, and I'm like, wow. You know, for 25 years, I had been dreaming about being free. Here I am free, and now I'm homeless. I'm in this environment. It felt just like prison. There was the restrictions of being autonomous. You know, that scare people out here when you're not in a situation where you can speak your mind and have a thinking thought, this doesn't work for me to have this argument, I need to walk away. They think you're weak when you walk away, but you're thinking intellectually. So peace studies and all of Tom's class were very instrumental in me getting to this point where I am today. It wasn't just a accolade where we graduated from a program. It was stuff that changed my life and allowed me to live and seek thriving.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I was incarcerated for nearly 17 years. I was locked up when I was 18. I have been home almost 6 years now. I work as a tattoo artist. I love so much about this program. Definitely trauma is it's just so interesting to me, and you know, especially being in the Chillon Project and working towards my bachelor's, which I'll get this year, and learning so much about psychology and everything, and just like really understanding that like you're where you're supposed to be because of what you've went through. We've all went through just like horrible, horrible things, and you can't judge people by their actions and things like that. It's changed my heart a lot as far as like dealing with people and things like that. But I think that, you know, leaving society when I was very, very young and growing up within the prison industrial complex, it wasn't even the prison that had the like really hard restrictions on me, the things that I've had to struggle with. It has been since I have been home. And not because I don't have a great support system. I do. I have a wonderful, wonderful community. My local community supports me. I work a lot in trying to help people in my local community to give back through not only the tattoo shop that I manage and work at, but just like personally as well. But there's so many just weird and odd barriers, and it's like, you know, we get out and we start our lives and we're like going and we're doing positive things, and you're going, and then you hit this really dumb wall, right? So like, I wanted to rent an Airbnb to go on vacation. I've been home for 5 years. My charges were in 2002. And I go to rent the Airbnb. I go through everything, they approve it, they take the money out, everything's great, and then 2 days later I get an email with the money returned to me and my account completely deleted, saying that because I am a felon, that I can't participate with Airbnb. Extremely frustrating, but just something that you can just, okay, somebody else can rent it in their name, or like I can just rent a hotel, it's whatever. Like Verbo, hotels.com, they're fine, but Airbnb, screw Airbnb. But literally, like, come on. But you know, and another restriction and things that people don't think about is like access to housing and things for us. When you have felonies on your record, especially certain felonies, like if you have drug charges, then you cannot have government assistance. So you just get out and you just have to do the best that you can. And, you know, people wonder why it's such a struggle. But myself personally, I was lucky to come home to a father. And then last year he committed suicide. And when that happened, it left me without a home and a place to stay. And I can't rent anything because I have felonies on my record. And it's such a barrier to being able to do anything in your life and being able to get ahead. And like, there are even places I cannot buy from because I have a felony and they don't want me to live in their community. Regardless of the fact that it was 20 years old, no matter how many good things I will do in life, I'm always going to have this barrier. And I think that that's important for people to consider, that you have the mindset that people deserve second chances, and everybody says that, and they're like, oh, go out there and you paid your debt to society. But society keeps wanting to take and take and take and take and take.
Hello, my name is Miss Shannon Bernard. I did 10 and a half years in prison. Wow. I work for a nonprofit organization called Advocates of the South. I'm the director of communications and marketing. And it's a blessing, to be honest with you, because coming out, I've been home a little over 2 years, finding employment and things of that nature. It was really rough. I found myself in a place to where, like, okay, I have this degree, but where's the work? You know, so I basically had to create an opportunity for myself, you know, and connections and resources and things of that nature. My experience being incarcerated and with Life University is that I was able to realize the systems that were imposed upon me that landed me in that situation. Because a lot of times, like, growing up, I was just like, well, what's going on? What's going on? Not having any idea about the structural violence, the PTSD, and the trauma that our parents dealing with. You know, they're just raising their kids for the first time as well, you know? So, and after I found that out, I literally almost had like a mental breakdown. Because I was just like, oh my God, I thought I was in control of my life. You know, and now I'm in a position where I'm, you know, disempowered, and they really try to take away all your control and all of your autonomy. But within that, I was able to find myself and find my voice. And now I'm out here in a place to where I'm in a position to advocate for others who are underserved and underprivileged due to lack of resources, and, you know, spread awareness. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jovanda Irving, and I'm listening to my peers and my classmates, and I'm thinking about all of the things that we learned in Dr. Flores' class, how it just kind of encapsulates everything: systems, institutions, human rights, resilience. So I came up with a meditative practice when I was incarcerated. I was incarcerated for 14 years. I'm currently in transition at a transitional house for women, and it is through the state of Georgia. And there we are able to actively participate in the prison industrial complex, which means we are going out, we are working on a contract, and if I were to quit today, I would go back to prison. So I'm forced to do this. So I'm forced to work. And it does something to you. But I want to take you guys back a little bit. I write in my journal a lot to express how I feel, because through Dr. Flores' class and through this program, I was able to understand what was going on with me, as well as have a language for it, which is important. Language is very important. So I just want to share something that I wrote. I heard a spoken word once where the two women, talented women, on stage lyrically illustrated the school to prison pipeline. As I stood online for inspection, their words echoed in my thoughts. If you can't get yourself ready in the classroom, how will you prepare for your jail cell? Standing online for inspection was another way to show yourself worthless to staff. In representation of the masses, in representation of the effects of white supremacy, we all know the racial imprint on this nation, but no one knows it better than a person incarcerated. Besides racial injustice building the walls of prison, you are made aware of your low-class status. I stood there stiff, hoping I would disappear into the pale gray as the inspection team walked through. They were going room to room inspecting, looking for food from the kitchen hidden behind books and in dirty laundry bags, clothes that were not the Department of Corrections uniform, extra anything, blankets, pillows, hair flat irons, fans, any other electronic device that did not have your name and GDC number engraved on it. They searched, and through the pictures of your children, parents, journals with your private thoughts in them, colorful scarves, clicky pens, and drawings, anything that held the semblance of normalcy, humanity, femininity, individuality, comfort, would be removed and thrown into a heaping pile of trash, food, crates, and tissue rolls that landed over the tier. There was no addressing the fact that the light in your room flickered nonstop or did not work at all, or that your toilet did not flush, that you had no hot water, cold water, or water at all. In the room sink, the showers filled with mold or spewed cold water or brown water or no water. There was no inspection of the leaking roof, the broken windows, doors, kiosk machines, phones, or empty female supply cabinet, the monstrous rats and rodents, the roaches, the grime, the filth, the fights, the sex, the shame, the darkness. The inspection team walked around the issues and concluded that you were the reason these issues came about, that you, inmate, were the reason that they must work. You who could not do anything in life but commit crimes are the reasons behind them needing to inspect. I was the reason that I stood there holding my breath while they trampled over our things. This is just an excerpt from how I felt at that time, how I feel now, even looking back. We are all this lived experience, all of us, and we all have our individual stories to tell. And I'm just glad you guys are here to listen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Morrison. I was incarcerated for 13 years. I've been home about a little over a year and a half. I graduated last year at Life University as a salutatorian of my class. And I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for the president. I'm thankful for Dr. Fabisac, Dr. Flores, all of the staff, because they added so much value to me. Life University inside of the prison was like a form of structural peace. They came in their values. They represented inclusion, dignity, access to opportunities, and most important, they believed in us. They helped a lot of us who was in that institution feeling like for me, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I just couldn't excel no more. But when they came, and those teachers were so genuine and so compassionate, and they looked at us like human beings, it did something to me. My self-esteem started to grow. I started elevating. I believed in myself, and lo and behold, I graduated as salutatorian, like I just said, and I'm in a master's in positive psychology right now. I have big dreams and goals and aspirations, and this school, I tell everybody, it has changed my life tremendously. Like, I'm forever indebted to them. It makes me emotional just thinking about them, because they don't understand. I don't even think they understand the impact that they do inside of their institution. It's like a light in this dark place. And I feel like a lot of us in there are missing this piece, this key element of education. Because if a lot of us had education, we would make better choices. And we all know that the criminal justice system is a form of structural violence. It is, especially for people of color, it's just not a good system. But Life University definitely made a difference inside of that institution, and I'm forever thankful.
This is the shy one, you'll see.
Okay, that was a bit heavy. So first, let's give it up for my amazing classmates. Y'all give it up. This is strength. Give it up, give it up, give it up. My name is Karima Hanifa. I am directly impacted by the criminal justice system. From the age of 15 to 41, I was incarcerated. I was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. I was told that I would never be released. However, I sit before you today almost free, except we learn later on that freedom ain't even free. Nothing is ever free. I feel like my classmates and my alumni members have like said everything that I was thinking when I walked into this room. I've been home for 5 years. There's like so much time between my story and Angela's story. There's so much time between like me and JoJo's story that as she was reading her piece, all of my trauma came back. I remembered holding my breath during shakedowns. I remembered being treated in a negative manner because I was in Life University. I remember being told, "You're not special. You think because you go to school, I'll lock you down. I'll take this from you." Right? While education is definitely a personal privilege, it was a threat to the system. They didn't want us to learn that there was a system and that the system had names. And a good example that I always use is like when we're kids, we see things and we think that's not fair, right? Like we see a perfect example is when you're in kindergarten or first grade and the teacher leaves the room, she turns around and she appoints somebody to take names. Can everybody relate to that? The teacher says, if anybody talks, anybody gets up and leaves, write down their name. But education allowed me to name the opposite of that system, which is democracy, right? Instead of, we live in a democracy where we're allowed to vote for who we want to be our leader. But when you was in kindergarten, the teacher decided who was going to be the leader. When we see a person being racially profiled because they're in a Walmart wearing a book bag, they're automatically assumed that they're a thief. But to understand that that system is called racism. Like I was able to name the systems that exist. And the list could just go on and on and on. I found that going in so young, I never had an opportunity to walk across the stage in my life. I went in at 15. When you in pre-K, back in the 80s, you didn't walk across no stage. They just gave you a certificate. And when you graduated from the 5th grade, they just gave you a certificate. And I didn't get to graduate from high school. I was given a GED, and I walked across a gym, but there was no stage, and I was in prison. When I came home, I think I was home I came home right before the pandemic, 2019. And life was my support system. Like, you ever been in a relationship and like that person is your everything? Like life became my everything. If I needed somewhere to serve in community, I knew where I could go. If I needed extra money, I could go and say, hey, how do I get in work study? If I needed some counseling, Peggy Samples or whoever, somebody was talking to me on the phone. If I needed somebody to just listen, I could call Dr. Faberzak, right? Like, it was a difficult process for me. And like I explained to a class on yesterday, my barriers were never financial. They were not financial. My barriers were psychological, right? And my only normalcy was education. Being able to bust a book and write a paper was my only normalcy, was the only thing that I had done for so many years on the inside that I continue to do out here. It's like a world over here and a world over there. And so I always I be hyping people up. You know, they got this song, I be like, you don't need no beat, you better hype your bestie up. Like, I be hyping people up about Life University, right? Because when we think about values and mission statements, a lot of people say a lot of things, like for real. But to say that this institution believes in autonomy and inclusivity and a person's ability to thrive, like when they say it ain't on you, it's in you, like it's for real. Like we live it every single day. Because when you have access to education and you're in a very dark place, it gives you something to hold on to. Literally, like I can't even explain a great comparison to get you to understand, but just know, like, when you find yourself in a dark place and there's something you can hold on to, sometimes it's a song, right? That you jump in your car and no matter how you feeling, you could just play a certain song and it just makes you feel better. Like that is what education was for me. For some people, it may be a struggle. Like, I ain't trying to be funny, but it seemed like y'all young people just like real privileged out here, right? Because when I came home, don't be looking at me like that. When I came home, I was like really writing these 350 word discussion board posts. And then when I finally, it say post your thread first. And then when I got in, I was like, dang, they only wrote 4 lines. But it's because I like dove in so hard into education. Literally, like they say 3 to 5 pages, like I'm checking in, like if 5.5 pages, you think, you know what I'm saying? Well, I don't need but 300 words, but I'm gonna do 600 because I'm late on my assignment. I need to just get in here and do this thing. But that's what education did for me, right? So I definitely would encourage everybody in this room to like value what you have access to, because something that was brought to my attention is that there is a 2025 agenda where Pell and other grants and scholarships may no longer be important or available. 2025, I was told this in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago.
One of the things that I didn't mention was my time. I did 12 years, 8 months on the inside. I've been home a little over 2 years as well. And one of the things that I came home with from the education that I received on the inside is how to push back against structural violence. And that has been a major goal for me that I'm still pushing towards with different things where, one, I started a nonprofit organization where I want to help individuals who are coming home to plan their reentry, because everybody's story is different. Clearly, you can see from us all, like our reentry was completely different. And I'm kind of like Karima. When I came home, I kind of had some stuff in place. Not all, because I felt like they kind of kicked me out of prison before it was time, which kind of sent me into a little depression because I'm a planner. But I was grateful that they did kick me out. But the only thing that was stable was Life University. Dr. Fabizak was like, the quarter just started, you can kind of drop until you get together. And I was like, if I do, I'll fall apart. So with that, I learned how to move forward and understand the violence that was happening in my life, even though it wasn't directly happening to me, but it was just the system that I was in. So from class, I know in peace studies, we talk about violence itself, and there's 3 forms: the direct violence, there's cultural violence, and there's structural violence. For me, on the inside, we've experienced all 3, and you heard that. So one, going into the prison system, you will experience direct violence, the things that they will do to you, the things that they will take away from you, the way that they will talk to you directly in your face, like here, so they can make you feel like they are dehumanizing you. And one of the things that I can say from my cohort and others, like we literally owned who we were. And it was that one step that kept us moving forward and kept us strong through the amount of time that we did. Now, the structural violence of being in prison was really interesting because it's a system. We've been in a system ever since we were born. And we had to navigate many systems that came along with a lot of trauma. But on the inside, the system, the structural system in itself is you have your COs, they have their supervisors, you have the lieutenants, and so forth. Depending on at any given time, any given rule applies. So how do you navigate that rule? We had to literally figure that out. It's not, they give you like a manual of what you're supposed to do, but we also know that they are giving instructions of what they supposed to do. So how do you navigate in between the two? So for structural violence on the inside, we just had to figure out what is happening, how we going to look at it, how we going to respond to it, so that for that particular day and only that day, we can survive to go to sleep, have enough stress off our shoulders, and to get up the next day to face another day of complete uncertainty. And that's the main thing with structural violence. It's really uncertain what you are going to face, and it's all these decisions that you have to make on a daily basis, not even just on a daily basis. Sometimes it's just moment to moment. So on the inside of prison, there's also a cultural violence because The time that I came in, it was a little bit more laid back. Like everybody knew how to move and not really agitate the system so that, however you just want to be okay that day. But then as time moved on and we end up in, it's 4 of us here that started the first cohort in prison. The structure of the prison at that point in time, we was absolutely nothing. And all of a sudden now we think we're better than everybody. So the cultural for us started shifting because we became the complete outcast only because we decided that we wanted to further our education. So with that, we had to end up holding our heads even high, taking all of the verbal backlash that we could take, and still come to class, cry it out. I swear to God, the 4 of us probably cried the whole first year. Not only because of what we was experiencing and having the opportunity to learn how to name what we was experiencing, but we also had the opportunity to go back in our lives and literally rewrite our story instead of being the person who was just always being beat down. We found our strength all the way back to when, like, I think we went back to our childhood as young as we could go back to rewrite our story from what we've learned to empower ourselves that turned around to empower others. And at the end of the day, what's more powerful for me is one of my special people in the back. Hey, Rebecca. When we went through CIT, which is compassion integrity training, that gave us a bigger boost on learning how to change the culture of the prison and also how to push back on the structure of the prison, which gave us the opportunity to teach other people how not to be involved in the direct violence of the prison. So when you listen to us talk, listen to it from those 3 perspectives, because you can hear in each of our stories how violence for however long we was incarcerated played a major part every single day. We didn't face direct violence today or structural violence tomorrow or cultural violence the next day. We did it every single day, all 3 parts of violence, every single day. And if you can imagine how we had to navigate that, and then coming home and we're still navigating because we are considered as convicted felons or whatever the system still wants to consider us as, instead of just individuals who are now citizens again. All 3 forms of violence is still a part of our day. Every single day we wake up.
Thanks. I'm going to take it outside of prison for just a moment because something that I learned in Life University that I felt like I probably should have known way back and somehow missed or didn't recognize was critical thinking. Now I went into the prison system at 43, and I had already raised 2 kids, had been a business manager for 25 years. Had been married for 30 years, had paid taxes, lived what looked like a pretty normal life. So I just want to ask real quick, and this is where I'm trying to get that look. You know how when the dog hears a strange noise and it kind of goes like that? I'm trying to get that from y'all, so it's okay if you feel that. Just go ahead. The question becomes, do you know how a jury is selected? Does anybody know how a jury is selected? I hope you never do. I'm just going to be honest with you. You would think the logical part of a jury would be that there's 12 jurors and that there's a 13th one that kind of gets to hover around and listen to everything just in case somebody drops out or doesn't make it. And you would think that, my logic is that the district attorney would pick 6, the defending attorney would pick 6. Kind of makes sense. You kind of put an even number on the table, right? And that 13th one that they had to agree on. Kind of was logical. I felt at 43 that was kind of normal. That's not how it's done, just so you'll know. District attorney has all say-so to cut everybody that he wants to cut. So he stacks the cards right up front. And then your attorney has to go and make an agreement as to who goes on the jury. That's a very difficult way to start. And I want to challenge you to think outside of just judicial, because we can sit here and we can bash judicial all day long. But critical thinking goes far beyond that. I heard something the other night on TV, on a TED Talk. I love those now. That seems to be like one of my weird addictions. And it made me do this again. It was a neuroscientist, and he was giving some statistics, and he was talking about a medication. And apparently, when you're prescribed a medication, there's something called, and so all of you students that are going to be chiropractors, you need to know about this part. There's something called a number needed to treat, NNT. And what that means is for every person that's given that medication, only one person within a number needed to treat is actually going to receive a benefit from that medication. So blood pressure medication, that number needed to treat is 300. You must prescribe 300 people that medication before one person's actually going to receive a benefit from it. I know, weird. That's exactly what I thought too. And I thought that was like all, crazy until I started looking at the pharmaceutical companies, and that is correct. Those numbers are actually out there. I know. I raised eyebrows over here. Very good. See, those are the looks I'm looking for. So when you go on and you look at this, I want to challenge you to live your life in a why mode. A what mode? What does that really mean? Because, see, I went into a lot of things just assuming that I knew how it worked, or assuming that that was just kind of status quo, or assuming that structural violence in prison was okay because it was prison. But there comes a time when you must challenge your own ideas and decide on what really is behind this, and what is it that it actually means, and how did we develop those ideas, and can they be challenged in a way that changes them? Because our system of incarceration needs to change. I was also, again, a taxpayer who thought that if you broke a crime, you should go to prison, that you got 3 meals a day, that you had a comfy mattress, you had cable TV, and you had a gym somewhere. Orange is the New Black is definitely not correct. Just in case y'all are watching those shows, that is not it. Definitely not it. You slept on a mattress that looked like something like hamster shavings. Have you ever been in the pet store and you've seen those like shredded fiber stuff? Okay, well, take that and shove it into a really hard plastic case, sew up the ends, and that's what you slept on for the time period you were there. So there's a lot to the prison system that's wrong. And believe it or not, that was actually not the worst case scenario. We have to challenge what we know or what we think in all levels, whether it be medical, whether it be, reform, whatever it is. Y'all take this opportunity because I think that's one of the biggest things that in there is we lived and breathed our educations because we needed it, because we needed to know that we had that connection point. And I agree with Kim. When I came home, and I've only been home 5 months, y'all, came home during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the days that I was trying to learn how to drive again, go figure doing that in the metro Atlanta area. And they added roundabouts. And what is all this card tapping that we do now at the cash registers? I mean, I was like, oh, for heaven's sakes, I'm constantly calling my daughter being like, what is this? And she's like, just tap, just do this. I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. But anyway, so in trying to navigate the system of the world that I was being put back into and do it successfully, because now we have probation and parole and everybody else looking at us, I was able to sign on to Blackboard as an online student, which is what I had started over at the Transitional Center in my Bachelor's of Science. And I was able to have that relief of recognizing something. I was like, oh, thank God I have to write a discussion post today. See, that's where Karima's coming from. Or, oh, thank heavens that paper's due on Friday. Because it kind of gives you that connection for a minute that you need. And so that's what that is. It added life in a different way. And it's that critical thinking that I want to hold on to, because I want to go through the rest of my life questioning exactly what it is that developed that system that we have.
My classmates are great. None of this was planned to the degree of just talking so easy. This is their life. And what I would like to speak to, I remember being 49, my first year in my associates, and realizing there were real issues with being black. I've been black all my life, and what are they talking about? What are these systems? What is trauma? First, I read about it, and then I lived it when I went home. There were moments of fog where I couldn't remember what I just wrote down. I couldn't remember my password. I've been out almost 4 years, and I just got my license because I had been away for 25 years, living in a structurally violent environment that didn't care about me, individual, perpetuation of poverty. I learned how to survive that. Then I made parole, and now I got to learn how to survive this. It's just so much to put on a person, and it's important for me that we get the information out there so you can see the other side of these people being affected by these systems that you're learning about. This is real life for us. The things that I learned in school were actually like my survival kit for being free. You know, we've got a lot of information, and there's money to be made out of helping people, but you really just want to help people because you know it's hard. You know that it's real, you know. People don't understand what it's like when you're trying to get a job, because I didn't have life at the beginning of me coming home. A lot of programs weren't in place. You know, things start moving as the system, the program grew. Then they knew that they needed to help people in certain different ways. So we're learning as we want to make and prepare for people that's coming home better for them than what it was for me, because I was lost. Once you leave society for 25 years and come back, she talking about tapping cards. I didn't even have a cell phone. So when I went to the halfway house, they gave me this phone, and I was like, and then they put all the stipulations. You better not get on TikTok. Of course, that's going to be the first thing I'm looking for. And, you know, such trivial things to get you in trouble for. And now that I'm out here and I'm free, and how important this phone has my information, my, what you call it, GPS to how I got to school today, these things that were important, right? None of this. And 25 years ago, it was the 90s, man. It was an easy life. Now I'm out here trying to figure out. It was easy. And so I thought, you know, there's so much I've learned, especially in the last few years of prison, about the structural violence, about what society is expecting of us, and how there are programs that are put in place that block us. You know, they kept telling me there's going to be a lot of stuff to help you when you get out. Them people, I end up in a drug rehab looking for help for being locked up for 25 years. It's like I ain't never been on drugs. But that's the only program that I was, Someone Cares in Atlanta, that was open for me. Yeah, that was open for me. And these were a whole bunch of addicts. And they were looking at me. And then one day, the counselor started me to counsel her. I was like, babe, I can't do that. I'm trying to, I can't help you. I'm trying to figure my life out. So there were programs in Life University, coming back and getting in school, talking to my professor, seeing my classmate, are the people I can relate to. Because we know the struggle from different points and angle, but we know there's a struggle versus this psychologist or this therapist at a program that need me to be her therapist. So I don't know, it's real, and I'm just so proud to hear them talk and understand their parts of their journey.
That's good. Maybe about 3 minutes, and then we'll per person, we'll have the question.
I have so much gratitude for the program. I do want to say that I have a kind of a uniquely different experience. I mean, all of our experiences are uniquely different. The way the justice system impacted me is different than it impacted a lot of people, because I just happen to be a very resilient person, and you know, I didn't take it to heart in kind of a way. And to say that, like, when I went into prison as an 18-year-old, when I went into prison as an 18-year-old, I was just determined that this was not going to make me into somebody that I did not want to be. And, you know, one thing the program taught me, and, you know, I was talking to Tom about this the other day, and that is, like, we don't have a whole lot of choice about the things that are going to happen to us in life, because sometimes things just happen to us, right? There are things in life that we do make choices about and, you know, directly lead to situations and things like that. But there are things that are going to happen to us and to the people we care about that are outside, you know, of our control. And there's a possibility that there's not going to be anything you can do to get the exact life that you want. The opportunities might not come. Things might fall short of your expectations. People are most definitely going to fall short of your expectations. But what you can do is be the person that you want to be. You can't guarantee you're going to get the life, but if you want to be somebody, if there are goals that you set in mind for yourself that you can achieve, the only person that's stopping you is you. And being young and in prison and, you know, having this kind of mindset, I have a lot of gratitude that I have this kind of mindset. I don't know where it came from, stubborn, just what, I'm Scorpio maybe, I don't know. But I came in with a certain type of mindset, and I also came in with a certain type of viewpoint, and Life University like increased the amount of empathy that I had. It's just infinite, the amount of understanding that I can have for people, and just like in the care for people that I probably didn't have access to before because I was focused on my own trauma. And that's the thing about prison. Prison is never going to fix people because they can't sit and think. It's supposed to be like a contemplation thing, right? That's how it started. You go to be penitent in the penitentiary. But you can't sit and focus on the things that you need to change about yourself when every moment of your day is constant trauma and a constant fight for survival. You can't focus on your victims when you're being victimized. And it's not only victimizing you, it's victimizing your family and things like that. So, you know, Life University was able to just open this up for me and just like open my eyes to a lot of experiences. If I see roadkill, it bothers me for days. Like I can't anymore, which is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, you know, empathetic distress. I experienced that. But I just, you know, coming into the program and just hope. That's what I'll say. Like, you're going to hear a lot of bad things about the prison system because the prison system doesn't work. If it worked, we wouldn't have a prison system, right? Hello. If the death penalty worked, we wouldn't still have to be executing people, right? Obviously, these kinds of threats do not work in society. There is a deeper problem, and we see this problem. It doesn't take a smart person to point out that there's bad stuff going on, but let's try to be the kind of people who point out all the good things that are going on. And there's just so much hope. And Life University brought that to all of us. The connections that we have with each other brought that to us. Being able to come out here and reconnect and not having to explain my experience to somebody, they get it. They get it. I don't have to talk to them for years. I haven't seen JoJo in years. You just automatically love them because they get it. They get it in a way nobody else will ever experience it. I hope none of you ever experience it or are as impacted by it as we are.
Okay. I would just like to say that the power of naming things and being able to know what the name is allows you to take your power back, especially when you're in a position of disempowerment. I'm grateful for Life University because I use these skills on myself every day. And as I heal me, I'm able to heal you, and we can heal the world.
All right. I guess that's all that everything that everybody else says is what I say. It makes you more reflective. It makes you more aware of the systems and institutions that affect you directly and indirectly, and also what blinds you to your own personal trauma. So we're able to see that more effectively and vividly through what we learn from life.
Really quickly, we are the masters of resilience.
You know, you assume that when somebody goes to prison that the building is functioning, that, you know, there may be heat, could be air, does not have air and has pretty much no heat. But what I came up against was something very interesting, and it just kind of shows you the concepts or the mindset behind it. I was at the transitional center, and there was kind of 3 levels, 2.5 levels or whatever. And the bottom level had 6 rooms that had no windows. And I don't mean that it didn't have windows like a full wall. I mean that there was a 3-foot by 5-foot opening with metal slats with no windows, no glass, nothing between the people in that room and the elements outside. I don't know if y'all know how cold it gets up there, but it hit 22, 24, 28 degrees. And the solution to that was take your sheet and try to hang it over the window. These girls had to sleep in an environment day after day after day when the cold was there with no windows. No windows. And they were freezing. These girls were just frozen down on that bottom level. And I finally called out and I was like, we've got to have help. Like, we've got to have help, y'all. This isn't something that's acceptable. I mean, I get that we're in prison and that we, you know, and the response would be when we'd go to the officer and I would say, there's no windows in this room. These rooms are registering at freezing temperatures 24/7. You know what he'd say? It's not the Hilton. You didn't check into the Hilton. You didn't check into the Hilton. What is that? Because there needs to be basic human rights. We ran into water problems and heat problems. Do you know what the rules are for prisons? Because I checked into all of this. It falls under the tenant laws. As long as there's some type of running water, it qualifies. Doesn't have to be pure. Somebody mentioned in one of the sayings, I think it was JoJo, said the brown water. I'm not kidding. Sometimes you turn on the taps and things brown. You turn on the shower, it's brown for days. So the human rights, where do we draw the line? We're in America, y'all. This isn't a third world country. And I'm not saying it needs to be the Hilton, but there has to be some kind of basic rights to make sure that people are okay. And I loved what I think Jess said. How can you sit and reflect and try to heal and figure out your life and figure out the harms and overcome when every day is just perpetual harm that's coming against you? Just even the struggle to be able to sleep because you're so cold you can't sleep. Human rights. Who wants that one? Not touching that one again. Yeah.
I'll add to that. Gender-specific issues from in a female facility. Some stats from inmate statistical data says that women are being incarcerated at 600 times more the rate than men are. We're going to go ahead and connect this to agendas from institutions, agendas from systematic structures that want to indirectly cause violence in order to make money. So, in saying all this, we're inside the institution and you do not have female care. No sanitary napkins, no tampons, no toilet paper. And if you have it, it's at a minimum. And guess what's so sad? You're arguing with other women about not having these resources. You're arguing with your roommate about toilet tissue. Like, how many of y'all have a roommate in here? Do you argue about toilet tissue? Tampons. You use the last pad. I'm laughing because looking back, it's so sad it becomes just amusing. It's just ridiculous. So there was a lawsuit somewhere. Don't quote me. But it was a lawsuit and it had to do with not having this supply on hand. And so therefore, the prisons came and they said, oh, well, you know, because this lawsuit's going on, we're going to go ahead and make sure you guys have supplies available to you in the supply cabinet. And so they began, you know, doing this and stacking it in. And guess what? Y'all know what's so sad? They did it all for show. They would say, okay, put in this cabinet, but do not touch it. Do not get a tampon out of there, because when the audit team or the inspection team or whoever that they have to be accountable to comes around, we need to show that they have tampons and pads inside and available to you, which is insane. You're like, what? I can't use these things? Yeah, you can use them after they leave, but we need to show that we're taking care of you. And what the institution does, this form of subtle oppression that happens in your mind, where you start playing into these ideas. You literally don't go touch that stuff. You're literally just in there like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that because, you know, they have to come around and they have to do these inspections. And I don't want to be the cause of failing these inspections, which are just a load of crap. I wanted to say one more thing, that the inside of the institution, inside of the facility, is a reflection of what is happening outside of the institution. So you have classism, you have racism, you have all types of isms that are basically just mirror reflections of what's happening in the larger world, in the free world. So you're able to look and you're able to reflect and say, okay, you know what? If this is happening in this small capacity, in this small space, then this is indirectly been affecting me my entire life, and affecting my generations, and affecting my families and my children. And we've been living in this trauma. We are all living in this trauma. Mass incarceration does not just affect us. It has affected all of you. I did a research. Okay, I'm going to be done. I did a research about how many companies are involved in the prison industrial complex, which is receiving money from the benefits of people who are incarcerated working. And it was Walmart, it was Bank of America, Johnson & Johnson. And guess when the COVID happened? When COVID-19, when that happened, guess the first people that offered a vaccination to us? Johnson & Johnson. So these companies are knowledgeable about what's happening, and it contributes to their agenda of making more and more money. Okay? I'm the angry one. All right.
So in the time we have left, I mean, there's obviously a lot more to talk about. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to take them. So let me start here. I'm closer, Tyree, and then and Rob, if you.
I have a question more for like the people who went in prison at their younger ages, because I got two brothers who went in 16 and 17, and they've been in that was when I was like 9. They've been in prison since, and I'm 21 now. They're still in and out the prison system, and I see like you mentioned, y'all equally mentioned structural violence, or in these social systems that affected you before, while you were in, and then when you got out. How do all three of those different, the before, during, and after, how do all those different structures affect you? Does it affect you different? What are the similarities between it, especially before you went in and then after you went in? Because I know a lot of people are victims to the system and what it does to you, just growing up in your neighborhood. And then, yeah, just pretty much elaborating on that.
I want to say that, like I said, my circumstances and my situation are a little bit different. Statistically, like, I was somebody who should not have went to prison if you look at the statistics. But I do want to say, like, one way that structural violence impacted me before, and I wouldn't have known it had I not went through what I went through. But, one way is the way that school systems are set up. So I went to a predominantly white school. We didn't have a black kid in my school until I think I was in high school. We had a few Hispanic kids. And, like that, it completely, it whitewashes the idea of racism. I didn't know these people. I didn't know that my friends were racist, actually, until I got out of prison and I saw them again, and I'm like, oh my God, But I didn't know because we didn't talk about it, because there was no reason to talk about it, because we weren't interacting with people and then having to challenge those ideas, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of one way. And then, going into prison and feeling like, I'm not racist, I have a black friend, the only one, And then going into it, no, I mean before, but not really understanding, thinking that you've got it and thinking that, like, oh yeah, I'm cool, I'm good. And then really going into prison and growing up in it and literally being raised from, like, I was 18, so being raised from, like, because I was ignorant, but being raised from, like, an 18-year-old predominantly by black women, and then really starting to see like this is different. Like this is happening different to them than it's happening to me. Why are you letting me do these things and then stopping Shannon behind me? And then we go to school and then we get the words for it, right? And we get the knowledge for it. And then coming out. And the system in there tries to turn you against each other that way too. They encourage the racism. They do not like for white people to be hanging out with black people or other races in prison. They will target you for that. They don't like it. In any prison, they don't like it. And so they're trying to drive a wedge by clearly favoring Caucasian people. And that's, one of the things that they try to do. Or they'll take one token, person and elevate them and allow them to have special benefits or something like that, which is going to cause them problems with their peers. And then when you get out, the structural violence again, it obviously in the same vein, with the racism, and it impacts you differently now, because now it's not enough just to be like, oh yeah, I have a black friend. Or oh yeah, I'm not racist. Now it's like I'm pushing against it I want to be actively not racist. I want to make sure that I'm listening to what people are saying and listening to their experiences and valuing them, and then pushing back with what my privilege is in any kind of way I can. Had it not been for the education and the words and understanding these things, I wouldn't have realized what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. And so, so that's just how you see things differently throughout the growth process, I guess.
Can I? So I just want to say to you that the structural violence of people of color, they intersect. 1 in every 3 black men are targeted. There are hotspot locations like in the hood where we're going to get so many people, and we're going to make these people feel like they're bad to justify us locking them up. When you get into prison, you're also under that microscope, and it's kind of fine-tuned a little bit more and telling you how bad you are, how you won't succeed, and how, for me, I was always in trouble for asking questions. Not doing bad things, not tearing up the prison, but for asking questions. Why are you doing this to me? And, like I said, I was 49 when I realized the in-depthness of being black and it being a problem because of structural systems that is built to keep us oppressed. A lot of people say prison isn't doing what it said it was supposed to do, but actually it is. It's meant to destroy and make us a permanent second class of people. We went from, calling people the N-word, attacking their neighborhoods. Now we put them in the prison industrial system, complex system. It's all the same thing. So for, a black person, I was angry. I used to be mad and argue about everything. I've calmed down since I've been home because I don't have time. I don't have time to fight stuff that's going on. I need to thrive. I need to build a life that I love living, but it's there. And it's going to be hard for them as they transition and when they try to reacclimate, because life is different and they're still looking at you a certain way. They're still judging you. So it's just something to be mindful of.
I'll be short. To answer your question, from a perspective of being around individuals that did come into the prison early and looking back over my childhood and how I faced a lot of my issues growing up. So you remember I told you guys, from birth, we in the system. So when you get to a certain age, you start pushing back on that system. We start doing that around our teenage time. And then depending on what's going on in the household, for men, which I've had a lot of conversation with guys that has come home now, they saw their parents struggling, or they didn't like something that was going on. They was like, hey, I got to step up, be this man. I want, to do it my way. Society has created certain norms that says that men shouldn't be soft, they shouldn't do this, they got to go this way, or they see their peers having certain stuff and want to keep up with society norm or keeping up with the Joneses, so they go do what they need to do that. So that is one of the things that I've understand from a male's perspective and from female, because we want to have that autonomy, but at the same time, we don't want to be a part of the structural system that was already set in place, what I've struggled all my life. So then you go into the prison system. So once you get there, they claim that once you go in, you have certain resources, and you don't. Like if you don't have that mindset of saying like, I cannot keep doing this. I'm not coming back here. This is some straight crap. And you have that will inside of you, it is kind of difficult. And you will see people constantly coming in and out from a young age because they haven't had the opportunity to be around someone or have that setting where they can develop certain skills or change their mindset. So the prison system continuously keep them in that same cycle of, I got to come inside and hustle to make sure that I survive because I don't have the backing or the support that I need. And the support that they think they have from their boys on the street or from your homies that you used to hang out with, all of that goes away. So again, you find yourself alone. You're trying to find autonomy. You're trying to figure out, am I going to survive the next day? And then you go through all of these what ifs and what can I do to make sure you actually just survive. It's literally survival mode. And when you come home, you're in another structural violent situation, because now you got parole or probation looking over your shoulder. If you get pulled over, you be like, dang, the first thing gonna be like, I'm on paper. So now they finna go ahead and just push back against me. But when I come home, I can't find no job. Nobody is willing to help me. These true programs that they claim they have is not really programs that's really geared for that person and their reentry to survive and be okay in their mind, not just physically, emotionally and financially. So like, it's a cycle, but you have to figure out, like, one of the things that I can tell y'all, I've been home a little over 2 years, and I promise you, I think I had a job almost every other month. Cause I was just like, my goal was we cannot not have a job. Right. Okay, so we have to work. That is a must for us being home. But my thing with the system was, all right, I gotta work. So I think I started out at $17 an hour. And then I was like, ooh, they paying $17.50 finna go. They paying $18 finna go. But in my head, I knew that I needed a job, but you wasn't finna keep me in a $17 an hour job. I'm not finna take nothing for $14. Listen, I was paying $1,700 a month for rent. What am I gonna do with $17 an hour? So I had to continuously be like, Kim, this is not your end. I have to wake up every single day and be like, this ain't it. We got to keep going. But everybody don't have that opportunity or that strength to empower themselves, when the system from a young age has taught, especially young black men, that you have to be a certain way or you should look like this. And if not, the only thing that's left for you to do is go on the street and get it yourself, however you get it. And that is how the system is set up from being a teenager. When they see that, all the way up to you go to prison and coming back out. You have to get it how you get it. And that mentality has to change, because if not, we gonna always have that revolving door. So one of the things that I appreciate with my cohort and the people that I talk to on the outside is the fact that those are the things that it's in my power to push back, because I cannot stand it. Societal norms has to change. And for men, they have it, other than like the female issues, that they have it way worse on the inside, because you got to go against gangs. You got to make sure you survive just on a different type of level of attacks. It's just different. So coming out of prison, you still had that same mindset. And I ain't gonna say it's a lot harder, but it is harder for men.
My question was, do you think that the prison system could be reformed if there was more of a therapeutic and individualistic approach, or do you think that it's nearly impossible because of how the system was initially built?
Just go on the line. Go down the line. Different takes.
Oh, yes. Would you like to go first? Go ahead. I do not believe that the prison system could be reformed.
So did everybody hear Sonny's question? Sonny,
I said, do you think that the prison system could be reformed if it took an individualistic and therapeutic approach, or can it almost never be reformed because of the systems put in place from the beginning?
Yes. So that was a great, very, very good question. And so I personally do not think the prison system could be reformed. However, I do know that we take specific steps and processes to help reentry and to also resolve some of those human rights issues that are going on inside of the facility. However, I just think that no, we could use way more money putting it into actual systems that could benefit outcomes in the end, like childcare, like public school systems, like foster care systems. Most people that are in foster care end up in prison. So these same systems that we just neglect and throw the money into the prison industrial complex, we can I just don't think that it's something that could be done.
I want to agree with her also, but they have been implementing wrongful conviction integrity units in different counties. I know Fulton County has one that helped me get out of prison, where they go back into cases to people and look at people who has overly sentenced or wrongfully convicted. So that's a step in trying to correct their wrongs. Like, they're helping people get out. So that's a step, but I think it has to be deconstructed altogether. Just like racism, I think you have to start all over.
I would say in America, prison systems need to be abolished. That's my personal opinion. Maybe we can outsource incarcerated individuals to Norway or somewhere, Sweden, where there's actual structure and they're actually doing the work that you was just speaking on. Over there it's just like you in a college dorm, they have laptops in their rooms, and they actually treat you like a human, so their recidivism rates are very, very low.
I would have to agree with all three of them because I do not believe that prison is helpful at all. I feel like we just need some type of rehabilitation in a different form. I do look at other prisons in different countries and stuff, and they're just way different. They're more, I hate to say like comfortable, but they just have,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, my name is Zakila Scott, and I am a student at Life University, and I am 29 years old, and sorry for being late. But I do believe that we could, if we had more support, as Jovanda stated, just in all different areas. I feel like everybody's on different pages. Some people are with it, some people are not. So it would just make me ultimately say that we can't either, because we can never just be one, it seems like.
I stand with the abolishment of prisons because a lot of people who find themselves in trouble were not properly informed about the systems in place and how the rules to the game. So it's about reteaching a person. And how do you reteach a person? By re-victimizing them and shutting them away from society, not allowing them to learn core skills, critical thinking skills that they would need to be a productive adult. Prison is never the answer. It's better educating our people. People of color have often to deal with going to schools that have outdated books that are teaching them about things. So education, for me, is really the problem. Giving people information they can use and make their lives better. But locking them up, and then the guards, they're not psychologists. They're mean people. They're mean people that lock you in your room, and they side, and they pick places. Hold on.
I just have a question on what you're saying. Like, it seems like some schools and some teachers in like high school and middle school are like training us kids and kids that have been through already difficult home situations by the way that they're being treated at school, and the food that they're getting is like they're preparing us for prison. prison. It's like, well, we'll get you so acclimated to what it's like to be in prison before you even get to prison. So they'll be in prison their entire life, pretty much, because that's just what they're used to.
Have you focusing on your individual problems make you blind to everyone else's, right? So again, I believe it's about how we educate our people as we move forward. Prison will be obsolete if everybody was acclimated with how life is for them to prosper.
The prison system started way before prison was even created.
Yeah, I mean,
Like you said, all the isms, like that, literally, that's the root that's pulling everybody into the prison systems.
we can never forget that, though. That the police system, that started off in getting black runaway slaves, these human beings. So how do you build a system on top of that and make it therapeutic?
There shouldn't be no systems.
I don't know here.
That was a very loaded question, by the way.
Yes.
Because, when you look at it as a whole, it goes backwards. You can't just say, can we abolish prisons or can we do away with prisons? Are prisons rehabilitative? Absolutely not. Not the U.S. prisons. And then when you start looking at the numbers, the U.S. have more incarcerated than any other country around. And then when you look at how we became incarcerated, there was the war on drugs, and now all of a sudden we went from 800,000 incarcerated up to 3 million incarcerated. So you have to kind of look at how your structure went. Do we put a drug addict in prison? No, that's not the place for them. Do we put a juvenile in prison? No, that's not the place for them. So there has to be a structure for change, but it can't be the current structure that we're under, because they're correct. It's been built in a way that we're just literally kind of layering it on. And now as we've layered it on, we've brought in financial beneficiaries throughout. And then we've taken another step that I actually had an interesting conversation with an officer one time. She had been in the prison system herself for 22 years. We used to say some of them had life sentences too. And she was handling a situation that was supposed to be a very simple situation. This, I'm going to say offender, sorry Thomas, but this offender had gone to get ice, and the officer comes out and she starts yelling at this girl, and I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm in school. I'm online and I'm in school and I'm watching it. And this is not a bad officer. This wasn't one of the you got some evil ones that you kind of have to be like, wow, that's going to be a problem. This wasn't normally a bad officer. And so the girl looked beaten down and rejected and crippled, and she went on out the door and went back to the dorm. And I sat there and watched the officer, and she goes back into her area. And before I left that night, I went in there and I said, I have a question. I said, I have a question for you. She's like, yeah. Because they'd kind of tolerate some of my questions from time to time. And I said, I'm curious. I said, earlier when that girl came up to get the ice, I said, she obviously wasn't applying, logic on getting ice. I mean, it's not that difficult, but anyway. And I said, and instead of taking the time to explain why she should be getting it a different way, I said, you kind of attacked her. And I said, I'm curious as to why that is. I said, because you've got the ability to teach. You've got the ability to actually counsel and help, and I've seen it in you, but what went that way? And she kind of sat there for a minute, and she said, you know what, I'm tired. I'm angry. And what it turns out is a lot of the people that are actually officers in the system are just as angry as the inmates. We literally, sometimes we're on the same side of anger. And it's like, how does a system like that work? Because it can't. There's not a healthy barrier in that. And so you're right. There's, I think it is Norway or Sweden, one of the ones, has a very successful system. And if you watch the videos, the officers come sit down, they have dinner, they talk about their days. It has to bring a human side back to healing is what it has to do. Because what we've done is we've taken it and we've segregated the whole system, regardless of age, race, color, whatever. We've set it out here and we've said, you're bad. And you're going to be bad now forever because we deem you that way. And that system will never function. And then they are shocked when I actually used to, I promise I'm fixing to give this up. I actually did a report on this. This is why this is so important to me. From somebody that comes out in 3 years, the numbers were like 75 to 80% went back in within 3 years. The recidivism rate is awful. If you had a tire company and out of every tire it sold, within 3 years, if that tire was broken or defective, that company would no longer thrive. It would fail. We know that. We see that in America. So why is it that we look at a system like this and we say that that's not thriving? And we take it and we point and we go, but it's the inmate's fault. No, it's a system that's broken's fault. And in any other system that didn't have the protection of a government agency, that system would be bankrupt. And our system is bankrupt.
Thanks, everybody. I apologize because I have to leave, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank our panelists for taking your time and being here. As president, this is one of those times where I feel overwhelmed with pride for what this university does. So I appreciate you being here for that. The other thing I'd just like to say, too, is this. At graduation, I've sat through 4 graduations, and the provost during those commencements says a sentence that I think is lost on a lot of people. It's that our values as a university are intended to solve the world's most farthest reaching problems. We're having a conversation about one of those problems right now. It's a deep one. You're absolutely right. I've agreed with everything that you've said. The U.S. is a remarkable country. We do things really, really well. We spend more on healthcare than any industrialized nation, yet we're the sickest population on the planet. We're 5% of the world's population, and we consume over 70% of the world's pharmaceuticals. Coincidentally, we're in the midst of the single biggest drug addiction in U.S. history, epidemic. And we're 5% of the world's population, and we're home to 25% of the world's incarcerated population. So the issue, that question, I could sit here all day discussing the answer to that question, because it's not just about the penal system. It's the recognition that our structures within our country have built within them inherent systemic entanglements of government, corporation, and private financial interests that perpetuate this. Can it be solved? Can healthcare be solved? Because the same competing factors are involved in that. That's why the way we look at things at this university allows us to come at the problem through a different lens: compassion, integrity, reconciliation, removing interferences to these systems to allow individuals within those systems to flourish. I mean, that's the heart of this university. So if this has done anything for anybody who participated in this, I hope it's made you uncomfortable. I hope it's made you have moments with that dog and kind of maybe even get defensive in your posture, because that's the starting point, to be able to recognize that we've defaulted to our own confirmation biases and the way we perceive and look at the world. And from there, we can start to have these kinds of conversations to create a greater understanding and awareness of the complexity of the issues that go into this. And that's the only way we're going to solve these problems. This isn't some politicized liberal perspective or left-wing perspective. Let's leave the hypersensitivities and the hyperpoliticization out of these conversations. These are about how to address the realities of the world we're living in. And I just want to say thank you. I appreciate everybody's participation, and I'm sorry I have to leave. I'd love to stay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I started out with one question, but now I have another. I wanted to address Ms. Pugh's point about voting. And my take is that part of the problem is that a lot of people don't know what's going on. A lot of people are completely unaware, and politicians do not talk about it because they do not see this as a, quote, winning issue. And if more people knew what goes on, then maybe, I saw a segment on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver that did a pretty good job of highlighting some of the abuses of the system. But there's only, how many people even get HBO? How many people even subscribe to Max? That's not getting the word out. And I realize I've made more of a statement than a question, but how do you feel? I also want to say I wish I had 1,000 Angelas in my class, because I teach composition and literature, and critical thinking is a thing, and live your life in a Y mode. That's an awesome statement. And but what do you think you and we can do to get this word out there so that people will know this is an issue and will vote accordingly?
For me, I can piggyback on one person that has been very instrumental in my reentry, which is the person that didn't speak a lot today, which is Karima Hanifa. Her passion coming home was her fuel. So if it's your passion, become somebody in the community that is on the ground doing the work. Because again, it starts with us first. So if you know this is something that is bothering you or something that you want to change, to get the word out, just like it did way back in the day before we had the Bible that was in a written format, is word of mouth. So get out, talk about it. You don't have to have a big setting. It don't have to be in an auditorium or a classroom. You can literally just your general friends, family, as a teacher, your classmate, talk about these issues, bring it up. Because for us, one of the things that I've learned from each and every one of us, when we have been on a panel, when we have talked to a class, we always have at least one individual that has said, thank you. This has opened my eyes, and it changed them. That one person went and talked to somebody else that had changed somebody else. So it starts with a conversation. You don't have to do anything grand, but to make a difference, we have to continue to keep it in the light, and that is by conversation.
I agree with that. I think that the ball started back when Life University came and set a fire in all of us to do something, because while we may be working in normal 9-to-5 jobs or whatever it is, every one of us is somehow ingrained in the community and in a community awareness in a way to continue to bring it forward. So that's become part of our life as well. And as for the voting, Marcy's Law hit many years ago and was approved, and it was kind of ironic because Marcy's Law is what kept me in prison for so long. And I remember my mother, she would say that her friends would be like, this is unfair, she should be out, it's nonviolent, she should be home. And my question was always, did you vote for Marcy's Law? Because the way it was worded, it sounded like a really good idea. But unfortunately, when you really looked at what was behind it, it was just another system of trauma,
I have a question. You're running it? So, and I don't know if I'm opening a can of worms that's going to keep us here another 3 hours, but I feel like I need to ask this question. So we've been talking about systems and being in the systems and structures, and I know that I've encountered a lot of pushback of people say, well, they had choice. This was their choice. So I don't want to leave here without having you talk a little bit about choice and the system, right? As if you had no choice, because we live in a country where it's all about individual choice and autonomy and all this, right? So yes, we have systems and structures. So what would you say to people who say, yes, but this was what you chose? These were the choices that you made that got you in this situation. What would you say to those people just about choice, and maybe and maybe how you see choice now? So anybody?
Start on that. Okay, because I was like,
It reminds me of that song, Go Easy on Me. I was just a child when I chose the decisions. So it's about education. People in different neighborhoods, lower class neighborhood, don't understand or have not been given the education or the information for them to thrive and prosper in a productive societal way. They're surviving. And in their surviving, they're being picked 1 out of every 3 male to go to prison and to survive that. So when we become aware of what we're doing to people systematically, and we try to educate them, then at some point the idea of locking people up for not behaving pro-socially become obsolete. I don't believe prison is the answer to it. I believe that we need to better educate our people in society about these systems that have kept us in the dark ages for so long.
How you say that you've been put in such a place, a lot of never look at the choices that people in their own lineage had put you guys in a corner, just like if you
To
put
make
a pit
those
bull in a
choices.
corner and it bites. Like, they always blame the pit bull, but they don't blame that they put the pit bull in the corner, and now they're wondering why it bit.
Right.
And then they're just gonna punish the pit bull, put the pit bull down for the rest of his life. It's never gonna be able to live just because it retaliated, did its own nature, what nature created it to do. Just as much as the pit bull can be loving and care and protect you, it can still mutilate you and do the same exact thing. So I feel like they're always looking at what had happened instead of why it happened.
Yes.
Why?
That's very important.
Go ahead.
No.
I was just gonna say I agree when they say that sometimes because it's true too. It's a lot of people, like I have examples in my life, like my mom, my sister, some people I know, they never run into problems. It doesn't matter. They probably do things, but they either are doing it correctly or they're not hanging with, a certain type of people, or they're not going to a certain type of environment. Like my mom doesn't drink, she doesn't do anything, and like I feel like a lot of people, I'm not gonna say everybody because that's not true either, don't indulge in those things, so they don't ever end up in situations like I would say my situation or somebody else's. Somebody like nonviolent crime is different. I feel like it's just situational, circumstantial, whatever. It depends, but it is about your choices because some things happen to you and some things you make happen, or you know how I'm trying to word it, like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like me. I feel like I was at fault, but I don't feel like, in some ways, but I don't feel like I deserved the consequence. Like just because you make a mistake or you do something wrong, I don't think I need to be locked in a room all day. And I was pregnant, so I feel like I was young too. Like I was 17 and I'm 30 now. It's a whole different world. I don't think doing 8 years was deserving. I was deserving of that, for the crime I did. But it's, some people where it does, like I said, it does happen to them. So I think it just all depends, but it is about your choices and your decisions too, because you might have, like me and JoJo could be saying, we're going to this party, or, and Bernard's like, or Shannon's like, I'm not going, and we decided to go, so it happened to us, but we might not have did nothing there, but the crime happened there, so now we're in trouble too. I think it's just all about, you just got to put yourself you just got to make sure you're always doing the right thing, as much as you can. And when you do mess up, I still don't think the system should punish you forever or even, almost forever. It's other ways, like I said, rehab, if it's a drug problem, or talking to me or helping me or putting me in a position is going to work better than yelling at me. It's going to make me mad. And I am going to probably come back because now I'm going to do something because now you done pissed me off, or you made me feel like it just doesn't work. You just can't fight fire with fire. If I did something bad, locking me down for 23 hours is not going to be the answer.
It's even saying like, a lot of towards the black community, things that you guys have done is bad, was created by someone else.
Yes.
Like a plant that was naturally created by God and grows naturally in places, you guys were put in prison for life,
Right.
for a joint.
Yeah.
And that has happened for years upon years. Do you feel like just because you made that choice, you deserve an entire
No.
life of imprisonment?
Of course not.
I guess that's where I understand there's a lot of gray area. Like if someone punches me in the face and I pull a gun out and shoot them, yeah, obviously I maybe shouldn't have chose that. But sometimes if you're getting attacked by cops, because I almost went to prison for fighting 7 cops, if I would have pulled a gun out and shot back, I would have been dead.
And exactly.
Because there's a lot of black community. If I would have even fought, if I would have been black and I would have fought back towards any cops, and I fought 7 of them, and I would have been dead.
Right.
If I was any other color than white.
Yeah.
Wait, don't skip me. Go ahead.
Hold on, let me get in here now.
I want to finish that with that question.
Yes, I actually have a question for that question, right? So we're speaking on choice, right? So are we really able to choose when the options before us are being controlled by somebody else? That's all I got to say.
That is exactly what I was going to add. Is this exactly?
You blame now that y'all are biting back when we put y'all in the corner.
Right. There's a level of accountability that I think Zakila is touching on, and that means, hey, I'm looking at my choices, I'm being aware of them, right? But there's a contextual factor too. There's other elements that are at play, and it makes you say, going through your whole life, say, hey, why? Why am I making these choices? What are the things? What are the circumstances and external factors that are affecting my decision making? So it goes back to this question. Is there a choice? Of course there is. However, the accountability is something that has to do with what this young lady said when she left, having the looking at things individually. And that is what the justice system does not do. It does not look at gray areas. It does not look at context. All it does is look at black and white, guilty or not guilty. And because of the agendas, it's probably guilty.
So choice is something that is really interesting for me because of my personal situation. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of a background. So I did 12 years, 8 months, but I did 12 years, 8 months on a 17-year sentence because 30 seconds of me being over my situation, me being tired of what has happened to me from the age of 5. And this was a family member that I fought. I actually was fighting back to protect myself, but also my child. Because in the midst of me getting into this dispute with this family member, my child was there and they also harmed my child. So for me, I cannot sit here and say I made a conscious choice to hurt them the way that I did, but it was out of protection. And the interesting thing about that, the person that I went to prison for hurting, the month prior, I had to call the police on them, where they were being arrested, but because of who the family member was and the fact that they were literally deemed by the state of being mentally ill, and I understood that, I asked for them not to be arrested because it wasn't going to make the situation better. I knew that the medication that they were on, they wasn't going to be able to get in county jail. So this particular family member couldn't live on their own. And as somebody who felt like family is everything, I felt like it was my duty to make sure that I was there, because nobody else in the family wanted to be there. Nobody else cared that they was going through what they was going through. So that meant that particular family member was going to end up somewhere in a part of the state. And because of how close they are to me, I felt like I had to. Regardless of what was going on, I felt like I needed to be there. Regardless of what happened the month prior, I still went back. Now, even in that, I did make the choice to go back knowing that it was a possibility that this could happen again. But from a person who was molested as a young age, told that they wasn't supposed to be born, they never wanted my father telling me he never wanted a daughter, how I was raised in an environment that was trauma almost every day as a kid. I grew up early. I had a baby at 16. It wasn't that, oops, I got pregnant. Nope, me and my boyfriend literally had a conversation. We are going to have a child. And I grew up extremely early. Those are choices that I did make. It didn't hurt me in any type of way. But when my child got hurt in the middle of me going through a situation, I literally, truthfully, in 30 seconds, snapped, because this generation is not finna experience what I'm going through. Now, did the system care that I was trying to do something good and I was making a choice to be there for my family member? Nope. Did they care? Because they tried to say that person was not, I didn't call the police on the person the month prior. They didn't care. They tried to sweep that up under the table because all they was focused on that I hurt somebody really bad in the mix for the second time of them jumping on me because I was trying to be the caregiver of them. So choice is hard. Because sometimes you don't have a choice, especially when it comes to certain situations. And if you go into the situation knowing that, hey, something has happened, you still have to go back and be like, how are you going to survive? Like, what have I already that has been put on me? So it goes back to a perpetuation of situations that you never really know what's happening because, again, you're still just trying to survive. And as a parent, and this was me protecting my kid, I was already taking the bulk of the fight, hair pulling out, scratches, all of this other stuff. They didn't care when they saw me, when they saw that. They didn't care when it happened, how it happened. All they knew was that person got injured way more than me. And I end up doing 12 years, 8 months on a 17-year sentence because I felt like family was everything, and that's what my place was supposed to be. So that's how I feel about choice.
If you look at it just like nature in general, like the tiger would have to defend itself against being attacked.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to kind of switch gears a little bit slightly because I have a different type of question. So first, thank you all for sharing your stories. I know sometimes it's hard to revisit that stuff, so thank you. We appreciate that. My previous experience was as a criminal justice instructor, so I was on the other side of things at Georgia State University. However, now I work here at Life University within our academic learning center as a student success coach. So my question is more geared to, I know you shared how life has been helpful to you along this journey and providing almost like a light in a dark place, and so I appreciate that. And so what are some things, or if there is anything additional that you would like to see from Life University as you, whether you could look back in retrospect or for an additional class coming in the future or even support now?
That's a great question. Thank you.
I would like to see a criminal justice department. And the reason is because life takes a different approach to the way they look at things. They look at things through a wholeness, through a wellness. So there's a different aspect. I think that a lot of times our society is training our law enforcement, our attorneys, our judges in maybe a little bit of a different way than it needs to be, back to kind of that broken system. I had a conversation with somebody one time about how come police officers are so quick to shoot or attack versus military is not. And I was having this conversation with a very well-informed, educated military officer. And what he said he said, we're taught differently. He said they're taught in a very quick schooling and it's to react immediately. He said we're taught to critically assess and determine best outcomes with least casualties. So there's a different mechanism of the educational side of things. So I think that life having embraced us the way that they have, I think to embrace a society that could actually be more informed would actually be beneficial to everybody in society. So that's my opinion if I saw something.
One of the things that I would like to see life do, with so many people coming here, one from different countries, 2 straight out of high school, 3 to further their education, is to have around voting, have a opportunity to get them to understand their rights for voting, why they need to vote, get them to understand, pay attention to who is running so that they can have their views match other views of politicians. I just feel like, Angie, because Life University look at things so different and we indulge in the conversation in a different way when we are in class and in school and with our teachers, I feel like if we can have that opportunity to come together as a university and make sure that, again, we keep the conversation alive, so that things can be different. I would love to see the school step up in that area.
I also think that was a great question. I think Life University can continue to take a comprehensive approach. We have a lot of different sides to what's happening as we transition and as we acquire our education, our degree. So we're dealing with and every student has, their issues and things that are going on. We have very specific issues. So we might deal with housing or employment issues or being othered. So I just would like Life Universities to continue to be sensitive to these issues, as well as maybe finding some resources and some network that will also help us as we transition home. Because just like Shannon was saying, she was homeless. She was homeless during her online classes because it was important to her. So having this awareness of these obstacles and these barriers could also help teachers become more involved in that transition, as well as offering the counseling that's needed and the therapy that's needed for us. It was something else that I wanted to say about that too, but I think I pretty much covered it. So just having this kind of approach, even getting, this is what I want to say, even getting, like how we're having this panel discussion here, getting other students in your classes more involved and aware of what's going on, what life is doing as far as helping people who have been previously incarcerated obtain their education. Just having this interaction, having these conversations because we're your community. We are all a community. Of course, I've seen everyone on this panel in their pajamas, and you guys probably haven't seen each other in pajamas, but I know every last one of these people very personally. So just having the same type of conversation with other students and getting a more cohesion with who we are and who we are to Life University community.
I just want to say the first step has already been started when Dr. Boss came into the theology program we had and gave us a survey about college courses and what we'd be interested in. And then when they got the deal with Life University and Dr. Faberstat came in as the director and Dr. Flores came up with the associate's degree, that was the start for Life University. Yeah. And why they bring in staff to teach in the classrooms, I feel like when they come back to teach in their class, like JoJo said, they can bring awareness of their experience of the incarceration system and just different things that we might need. And also the resources. I feel like if you can get resources for housing, food, et cetera, I think that's also a good thing.
Yes, and guys, this has been such an education. Thank you, Dr. Morris. I originally brought my students for my leadership class because we're talking about conflict management. My students aren't here anymore, but I wanted two questions. First of all, from a conflict management standpoint, what education have you received as part of this program, and what you offer that I should share with my students? And the second question is about your spirituality, because you all mentioned theology. How do you practice your theology personally? All right, yeah.
That was the class I taught.
We can go down. Yeah. First, I'll start off with my spirituality. When I got incarcerated, I considered myself a Christian. I don't use that term anymore. I consider myself as a spiritual person because I've learned so many techniques from other religions that has made me whole. So I'm very eclectic in that way. And two, one of our biggest classes, well, for me, we got our associate's degree in positive human development and social change that took us, my cohort, like that was a complete transformation for us. Well, we did personal reflection before we looked at others or systems. Like we literally did a whole 180 on ourselves, because when you're thinking about personal development and you're trying to help other individuals, you can't help nobody else if you did not take a self-evaluation of yourself. So because there's so many biases that will pop up, so many emotions and personal thoughts that you can't be there for other people. So like I said in the beginning, we cried practically our whole first year because it was about us. We was naming stuff for us that we went through, and then that changed. And when we went to our bachelor's degree in psychology, I don't know for everybody else, but certain classes kind of stressed me out. And Angie experienced this for me because we both was at the transitional center together.
social psychology and abnormal psychology almost made me have a complete breakdown because I was reading the information on paper, but I was seeing it every single day and I didn't know how to separate it. And only thing that really helped me with that is I literally started teaching CIT while I was at the transitional center because it kept me grounded and it also reignited my spiritual side because it tapped back into that to a certain degree. Now, CIT has nothing to do with religion or spirituality, but personally, it kept me connected to my spiritual side. So that's how the two work together. So conflict transformation gave us that tool to one, again, look at ourselves, look at how we want to change, what was our personal mantra for us to move forward to make change, and then we tapped into our spiritual side and our personal passion, and here we are sitting up here today.
Emotional education. So we learned about that. We learned about our emotions and how not to get triggered. Like our whole program really taught us how to live differently. That's why I'm so big on educating people as a society as a whole. It will change the trajectory of who will go to prison and who won't. You know, prison is never going to be the solution for me. It's about better educating our people, going to the neighborhoods. I admire Karima so much for what she has been doing since she's been home and making not only the community aware of these systems, but other people aware of the community. You know, that's very important for us. And I think that when they created these set of students, that they didn't know how big it would grow and how we would push back against systems and question our lives and other people's lives. And I love Life University because it just saved my life.
I have a lot to say, I know. You cannot go into any of the classes in Life University which surrounds like this vitalistic approach without thinking about your own individual experience. So lifespan development, intro to sociology, psychology of religion, peace studies, conflict transformation, CIT, all these classes are they just give you the language to explain and articulate your experience to share with others in order to make them more aware. And of course, the awareness brings about positive human development and social change. So everything is just always this very interwoven, interweaving effect that just affects everyone. So as far as the religious or spiritual aspect, I definitely was able to pull a lot of concepts and themes out of the Bible and place them in a lot of the things that we studied in class about positive change and positive psychology. We took a class about that. I took that class in the facility. So I was able to make these connections, and these in turn helped me question the things that I knew already or the things that I thought I knew already. Then I would go all the way back to theology, and when I met Dr. Fabizak years and years ago, gosh, it was years ago now, and Dr. Fabizak had this little shag haircut, and he was really super cool. He was really super cool. And he had these little circle glasses, and everything you would say, he would say, interesting, interesting. So I find myself doing that same thing now. When I talk to other people, I'm like, oh, interesting, because it is.
I do want to answer something about her conflict transformation part. Just really what I heard in that class was how to listen, how to connect with the other person even though they have a different view, and then how to negotiate so that all parties come out of it whole or in a better position. Because so many times, especially in the system that we were in, you just want to be heard. And that was one of the things that that I heard while I was in prison. I don't remember who said it, but they said a lot of times, I believe it might have been you. They said if the upper area is not listening, then you become louder on the local level. And so we saw that in mass in prison, because you'd walk into a dorm and everybody was complaining and everybody was angry and everybody was just fed up. And the anger that prison brings, I'm not an angry person, and honestly, I didn't even recognize myself as angry as I was. And I told my mom when I came home, I said, now if I just go sit in the backyard for like hours, just leave me out there. Like, I'm literally trying to rid that anger that I picked up, because you have to take that and set it off. Otherwise it taints your future. But I think the biggest thing is that when you don't feel heard, all you do is continue to scream. And so it's that stopping and listening and then seeing it. And I remember we would go into exercises where we would debate things. We'd kind of pick a team and, whether you agreed with it or not. A lot of times they'd even have us debate things that we didn't agree with, so that we had to see the other side. Matter of fact, that is what you did. I remember that very distinctly. I don't think I liked it. But anyway, and so by seeing that other side, even if you still don't agree with it, you can at least relate to it. And it's that relation that then allows you to transform that conflict. And so it's bringing forth that conflict in a different light.
So one of the things, one of the classes was the conflict transformation that we did in the class. So I'll just say very quickly, you see them sitting here and everybody's getting along. But if you can imagine this cohort where they had to deal with conflicts in the classroom, and so the blessing was they were a cohort. The curse was they were a cohort. So they had to work out a lot of conflicts, the energy, right? So they had to negotiate each other's energy. You see a lot of strong personalities here. You get them all together. People are stressed out. People are disappointed. Maybe they got news that parole was denied. All kinds of things. So for me, I told you this the first day I went in there. I said, I'm not going to teach you anything about conflict. You're going to teach me. So they taught me how to work with the sort of creative energy of conflict. There were times when the class seemed like it was going to implode, but we found a way to be honest. They knew it was a safe place. And so they could at least be vulnerable and take a risk. So this goes way beyond the academic principles of conflict transformation. I saw it, and they had to do it every day. That's how they were, able to once again embody these things and teach me things about, this field that I was supposedly in there to teach. That I had a lot to learn from them.
Tom is funny. He would come in and pose a question just like you did, and just leave the class up to us. And it turned out to, by the time he taught us in another class, he was reteaching us stuff that we said to him. Right. So it would be days Tom would come in and he would ask the question and sit back with his legs crossed, and don't know what to say. So it was really interesting how Life University structured our classes. I know we used to think like y'all had this plan, like y'all knew this was gonna do. Y'all knew we was gonna cry, but I appreciate how everything turned out. I appreciate how our support system is extremely strong, and I appreciate how every individual that's sitting up here, including Karima, and the ones that has left, that no matter where we go, we absolutely take Life University. Our conversation is Life University. Our school is Life University. I just got on a new job and I got somebody applying for Life University. So we take everything that we've learned. We've taken our experiences. I can tell you the person that's applying for Life, I told her how we are with our professors and how the conversation go. And she was 100% sold. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate what was instilled in us. And I love the fact that we can come back and teach you guys.